Obviously, I need my words because I'm forgetting them. So, we are from the Niagara Drum Group. It's the Niagara Women's Drum Group and our biggest fan. So it's Sabrina, Oki, and Shia. And as was said, this is the shared territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. And in the time before colonization, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples made a treaty that you heard about called the Dish with One Spoon, living in principles of non-interference and reciprocity.
The neighbors were able to live in
peace in one territory, each living in their own way, each relying on the land for what they needed without starving out the other. A treaty that included our other than human relatives, the land and the water, the birds and the animals that crawl and swim. And so in that spirit, I welcome you here today, and to tell you that many of us stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and Kashmir. For the people of Palestine and Kashmir who seek the same, who seek to live in their own way, in their own homes, beneath their own olive trees, to live in peace in one territory without interference. This morning I read the words of James Baldwin, and knowing I was coming here today, they hit me in a particular way. In an open letter to his nephew on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of emancipation, he wrote that it is not permissible that the authors of devastation should also be innocent. It is the innocence which constitutes the crime. It is their innocence that constitutes the crime. Of those who colonize and settle and push us aside, they want to be innocent, to say they didn't know, to be so far removed that they don't even need to look away because they never even looked in the first place. To be so far removed that they don't need to cover their ears or walk around us because there's nothing for them to hear, and their feet are so far from us the moment they touch ground. But innocence is itself the crime. Barriers created and maintained, the forgetting, the denial of our history. I did not know that there were rituals done in Africa so that those who were sold into slavery would forget, but they did not forget. The rituals were perhaps for those who sold them. And for those who colonize and settle and push us aside, they also have rituals of forgetting. But we do not forget. We beg and plead to be seen as human, as worthy. We think that if we could just show them that we bleed like they do, laugh and cry like they do, rejoice and mourn like they do, maybe they don't know, those innocent and well-meaning people. But the innocence is itself the crime. Because who is yet unaware, who, against all good sense, maintains their innocence at such a time as this? Canada needs to stop. The United States needs to stop. Australia needs to stop. The United Kingdom needs to stop. Israel needs to stop. India needs to stop. Stop funding the military. Stop encroaching on land. Stop murdering those whose existence refuses you your innocence. It is the innocence which constitutes the crime. From Turtle Island to Palestine, colonization is a crime. The first song we sang was called The Longest Walk. It's from a walk that the Native American people did from Alcatraz to Washington, D.C. in the 70s. And that song commemorates that walk and all the long walks that we've both taken. And now we're going to sing another song, and I don't know what it is. Now we're going to sing. What's that? We're going to sing The Seven Grandfathers, because we're here today for the next 7 generations. Free, free! Palestine! Free, free!
Palestine!
Viva vida!
Palestine!
Viva vida!
Palestine!
I want to say a big thank you, a big thank you to the Niagara Women's Drum Crew. That was incredible, incredible! I want to give a special mention to Wabanan Anamdukwe, who's speaking. She's also the co-host of a podcast called Medicine for Resistance with Carrie Goring. Check that out, please, for more brilliance from her. You can follow Wabanan on Twitter at GINDAANIS, Jindanis, for more of her brilliance. Please and thank you. Next, I'd just like to remind you that yesterday we were told there'd be a ceasefire. You know, the bombs, the attacks on Gaza, on Palestine would stop. They did not. For the Friday prayers at Al-Aqsa, the Palestinian people who were peacefully praying were attacked. Shame! What do we say to that?
Shame!
Next, I'd like to invite Robert Fantina. Robert is an author and journalist who's dedicated to peace and social justice. He writes extensively about U.S. foreign policy with a focus on Palestine. He's served on the boards of Canadian Voices for Palestinian Rights and Canadians for Peace and Justice in Kashmir. His most recent book is Propaganda, Lies, and False Flags: How the U.S. Justifies Its Wars. And his new book, which is releasing in November 2021, is called The Attempt to Crush Palestine and Kashmir: Israel and India's Parallel Crimes Against Humanity. Robert, if you join us up here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to offer my thanks too to the Niagara Women's Drumming Group. I'm their biggest fan. It's very inspirational. I thank you. Okay. If we consider Canada's long history of colonialism, it's probably not a surprise. Colonialism, it's probably not a surprise to know that Canada is complicit in all of Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people. The methods they use are numerous. I'll list some of them now. Prime Minister Trudeau opposes the boycott, divest, and sanction movement.
Nurladin, eh?
You recognize him?
Okay. I just want to start. I was mentioning that Canada has a long history of brutal colonialism, so knowing that, it's not really surprising that Canada is complicit in all of Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people. The methods are numerous. Prime Minister Trudeau opposes the boycott, divest, and sanction movement. This is an international movement and one with a proven track record, since it was instrumental in ending apartheid in South Africa a generation ago. Trudeau condemns any violent resistance to the occupation, ignoring the fact that occupied people have the right under international law to resist the occupation in any way possible, including armed struggle. Canada under Trudeau opposed the ICC investigation of Israeli war crimes. Anyone who watches any news has seen Israel bomb hospitals, schools, homes, mosques, even the United Nations refugee centers. They have seen the intentional killing of journalists. All of this is in violation of international law, yet Trudeau opposes the International Criminal Court investigation. When an Israeli company that makes wine in the West Bank marketed it in Canada as made in Israel, the company was sued and the court found in favor of the plaintiff. The company couldn't say that the product had been made in Israel. Trudeau's government challenged that lower court ruling. It was recently upheld. Canada deals in arms with Israel, some of which are certainly used to kill innocent Palestinian men, women, and children, as we've seen in the last 2 weeks. Canadian government officials don't seem concerned about that as long as the profits are high. what's a little genocide between friends, right?
Say hi and
Canada opposes initiatives at the United Nations and other multilateral international forums that Canadian officials say unfairly target Israel for criticism due to criticism of the occupation. Do they really need to be reminded of the illegality and brutality of the occupation? Do they not watch any news stories over the last 2 weeks? Canada also supports the Zionist-inspired myth that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. The Trudeau government has defended Israel against criticism at the UN more than 50 times. Canada has designated a Canadian-based group a terrorist organization because it supports orphans and a hospital in Gaza through official Hamas-controlled channels. We need to remember that our elected officials are supposed to be our representatives. They pass laws, establish treaties, visit other nations, appoint officials, and do numerous acts in our names. Therefore, they need to know that we support Palestine. The only way they can know that is if we tell them. The people in most countries don't fully realize the power that they have, and this is true in Canada. We need to write, call, and whenever possible, visit our members of parliament and do it continually. They need to know that if they don't support justice for the Palestinians, we will remember at the ballot box. We need the permanent representative of Canada to the United Nations, Mr. Robert Ray, to know where we stand on this issue, and we need to keep telling him until he stands on the right side of history and justice. We need Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to know that Israel is an apartheid state, a conclusion drawn recently by the most influential human rights group in Israel, B'Tselem, and Human Rights Watch, one of the most influential human rights organizations in the world. These are not, contrary to what Mr. Trudeau might like to think, anti-Semitic organizations. The conclusions drawn by these human rights groups are meticulously documented. In addition to writing, calling, and visiting, we need to know when government officials are appearing in public, and we need to greet them with crowds and picket signs. They need to know that we aren't going away. We also need to join other organizations working for peace and justice. We need to establish relationships with groups fighting for justice in Kashmir, fighting for indigenous rights. We need to be closely aligned with the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States and elsewhere. There are strength in numbers, and we are on the right side of history. Thank you. We must continue to work on Palestine until Palestinians are live everyone free to live in peace, dignity, and prosperity in Palestine. Free to return if they were displaced from Palestine. We need to continue doing this until we succeed. The task ahead of us is daunting, but we're up to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for those words. Hey Trudeau, you will see, you say, Palestine will be free. Hey Trudeau, you will see.
Palestine will be free.
Hey Trudeau, you will see.
Palestine will be free.
Hey Netanyahu, you will see.
Palestine will be free.
Hey Netanyahu, you will see.
Palestine will be free.
Free, free.
Palestine.
Free, free.
Palestine.
Viva, viva.
Palestina.
Next, I'd like to invite a Palestinian community member, Maha, up here to lead us in some chants.
Well, once again, guys, thank you for showing up and showing your support for Palestine. You know, they say that the old will die and the young will forget. But when I look around here, I see enough young people that will show them we will never, ever forget where we come from. And the Palestine will always be Palestine. So let's make sure that we as we can be so that everyone in the universe, anywhere they are living, they can hear us. So, Viva, Viva Palestina!
Palestina!
Viva, Viva 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 Palestina!
From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free.
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Alright guys, let's make it a little bit louder. We gotta make sure they hear us everywhere in the world. Viva, Viva Palestina!
Viva, viva Palestina!
Viva, Viva
Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina!
From the river to the sea!
Palestina will be free.
Palestine will be free!
Palestina will be free.
Justice is our demand!
Justice is our demand.
No peace and stolen land!
No peace or stolen land.
Justice is our demand!
Justice is our demand.
No peace and stolen land!
No peace or stolen land.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine.
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 Viva, Viva Palestina!
Viva, viva Palestina.
Viva, Viva Palestina!
Viva, viva Palestina.
Free, free Palestine!
Free Palestine.
For all support and continued support. Thank you, Maha, for coming up and reminding us. We will never forget. And next, I'd like to invite Nahida or Marina. Are you around? No. There's.
Hi everybody. Thank you all for coming out. Firstly, I want to recognize that some people here are not Palestinian. I'm not Palestinian, but we do recognize the oppression and what Palestinians go through daily. Just because a ceasefire ended does not mean that this is over. This is actually just the beginning, and because of all of our posts and all the information that everyone has shared on Instagram, Facebook, and all their social media, is the reason why we're all here today. So, thank you all for coming out firstly. Secondly, I'm not going to be doing a chant, but I'm actually just going to recognize all the kids that passed away in Gaza the past 2 weeks. There's probably more. It's the only list that I have, but I just want everyone to take a moment of silence as I read their names out. They do matter. They're not just numbers. And I'm not going to accept just being known that over 200 people died and that was the end of it. So, one moment, please. Also, now that I'm at it, sorry. I have someone handing out resources to sign petitions across different platforms. They're going to be sent out to Canadians. And also, there's this code to scan. It's going to go straight to Justin Trudeau. I'm running out of printouts. I still have the printout. So if you find me, just sign or just get the code and sign it later. Okay. This is in memory of the children killed in Gaza: Yazin, Ibrahim, Yahya, Lina, Mustafa, Bashar, Ibrahim, Muhammad, Hussein, Bara, Rahat, Marwan, Hamza, Hala, Zaid, Ammar, Hamada, Khalid, Lena, Bathina, Amir, Adam, Muhammad, Ismail, Ahmed, Muhammad, Sur, Ibrahim, Islam, Amber, Muhammad, Abdullah, Suhab, Abdul, Uzma, Maryam, Yaman, Bilal, and Yusuf. Again, this is already from 7 days ago, so I'm sure there's more. I just don't have the chance to find all their names, but there are many people that are martyred in Israel that are not getting noticed. Not getting noticed. The propaganda is astronomical, but thank you all for coming out. That's all I'm going to be doing here today, but keep signing. I'm going to be handing them out, and if you find me, just ask for it, and I have no problem handing it out to you. Thank you. Thank you, Nahida and Marina. You both have been, actually, just want to, they're very humble, but they've actually been instrumental in helping this gathering come together. So that is shout out to, women who put in the work to bring the community together in moments like these. Much, much gratitude. Next, I'd like to invite, yes, please give us a big round of applause.